Pope Francis, the leader of the Roman Catholic Church, participated in one of many services shown on TV and online as millions of Christians virtually attended church following social distancing guidelines on the day that commemorates Jesus Christ's resurrection. Some churches held drive-through and parking lot services, and some worshipers planned to celebrate in person anyway. And that brought up a number of legal questions and lawsuits in America as issues of health restrictions and religious freedom clashed with one another.
The UK has recorded almost 740 new coronavirus-related deaths, taking the total number to more than 10,000. The figure doesn't include deaths outside of hospitals. One of the government's scientific advisors said the UK is likely to be among the worst affected European countries. The British Prime Minister has left hospital and is recovering from the virus at his country residence. Boris Johnson says there is no question the health service saved his life and admitted there was a 48-hour period when things could have gone either way.
China is turning its eye to its northeastern border with Russia in a bid to stamp out a possible second wave of coronavirus infections. It comes as the country's number of new daily cases rose to its highest in nearly 6 weeks, with more than 90% of those involving people coming from abroad.
Storms spawned dozens of tornadoes, knocked down trees, cut off electricity for hundreds of thousands, and killed at least 18 people. Hundreds of buildings were destroyed. It was moving northeast toward Virginia and even threatening New York with strong winds and heavy rain. 39 million people in 11 states faced the possibility of severe weather on Monday. It was an emergency on top of an emergency. It brought new challenges to state governments, which were trying to find a balance between keeping people safe from the storms and keeping people safe from coronavirus.
Donald Trump has angrily defended his handling of the coronavirus outbreak in the United States. It's now killed 22,000 Americans. The president says he acted at the earliest opportunity. U.S. infection figures have begun to stabilize, and a program's been set out for reopening after the shutdown.
As far as reopening businesses to the public goes, a handful of U.S. states are now drawing up plans to do that. Places that are seeing coronavirus cases and deaths level out or even decrease want to get people back to work and restart the engine of commerce. So steady and planned are the ways governors want to go about this. In Italy, the lockdown is still in place, but a small number of businesses were allowed to reopen on a trial basis starting Tuesday, and these are businesses that are considered non-essential, like bookstores and children's clothing stores. In Spain, around the capital of Madrid, an estimated 300,000 non-essential workers, including some in construction, have gotten back to work. But it's a different story in France, which is extending its restrictions and keeping its borders closed for another month. And in India, where coronavirus cases continue to increase, the nationwide lockdown has been extended until May 3rd. Most of the American public is under stay-at-home orders.
Donald Trump has halted U.S. funding to the World Health Organization over its handling of the coronavirus pandemic. The president said the WHO had failed in its basic duty and must be held accountable. South Korea is holding a parliamentary election despite the coronavirus outbreak. Voters are having to observe strict hygiene measures at polling stations, and those with high temperatures are being redirected to special polling booths. As Austria, parts of Italy and Spain begin easing some restrictions, the WHO has issued a warning that relaxing measures to slow the spread of COVID-19 too early could bring on a second wave of deadly outbreaks in Europe.
It was the initial epicenter of the outbreak and the place where the new coronavirus was first detected. Now Wuhan is where China says it started the second phase of clinical trials for an experimental coronavirus vaccine. This 84-year-old resident from the city is among those taking part, according to this footage from Chinese state television. I want to make some contribution so that I can feel peace of mind, he says. The second phase of the vaccine trial is set to involve 500 volunteer participants. It's being conducted by researchers at China's military-backed Academy of Military Medical Sciences.
According to the U.S. Federal Reserve, the country's central bank, 5.4% is how much America's industrial production dropped in March as factories stopped operating. Manufacturing fell by 6.3% as cutbacks were made in areas like car production, auto parts manufacturing, and furniture making. The last time these numbers decreased by this much in a month, the year was 1946. World War II had just ended. Industries were shutting down their production of war effort materials and transitioning to making consumer products again. 74 years later, it's the coronavirus pandemic that's closed factories.
President Trump has claimed the US is passing the peak of new coronavirus infections. Says many parts of the country are in a strong position to reopen the economy. He has been at odds with state governors about the timing for easing restrictions.
Some American intelligence officials say it may never be known exactly where COVID-19 came from. Scientists originally believed it started spreading from a seafood and animal market in Wuhan, China, but we told you last week how researchers didn't all agree with that explanation. And now, U.S. government investigators say they're looking at several theories for how the virus got into people and started spreading, including the possibility that it came from a Chinese research laboratory in Wuhan. American intelligence officials are examining whether some kind of accident led to COVID-19 getting out of the lab and into the public. They say they don't think it was developed as a biological weapon. They also say it's too early to draw any conclusions, and the Chinese government has denied that lab research led to the coronavirus pandemic. But the search for answers continues as the disease continues to spread.
President Macron has told France that Notre Dame will be rebuilt within 5 years as donors pledge almost $1 billion for the task. Polls have closed in Indonesia's biggest ever elections, with thousands of representatives being decided upon, as well as the presidency. Incumbent Joko Widodo faces a challenge from his 2014 rival, Prabowo Subianto. Protests are set to continue in London, where more than 300 climate change activists have been arrested after blocking roads in central London for a second day. It's thought around 500,000 people were affected by the disruption. The president of Ecuador has renewed his allegations about WikiLeaks' Julian Assange during his 7-year stay at the Ecuadorian embassy in London. The president has told the BBC Julian Assange insulted his country and smeared feces on the embassy walls.
Boeing will resume commercial airplane production next week, sending around 27,000 employees back to work in Washington state after having suspended operations last month. The company says it will start staggering employee shifts, creating physical distance in the workplace, and requiring face masks for all workers. Boeing is also asking employees to perform self-health checks before coming to work and performing wellness and temperature checks before every shift.